Everybody, my name is Ra. I'm filling in for Gary for Astro Mondays, and we're about to hear and talk to Christopher Witecki. And today I'm going to try and answer some of the questions or guide the conversation towards some of the comments that we have. So definitely drop them down below. I can see them all. And man, my brain is a little bit boggled because I was just listening to an author talk about desire and suggesting that anything that we desire is desired by somebody else. And that is what desire is. But I know the word desire means from the stars, which means that the universe itself is desiring you to be one with that reality. Desire comes from de sedere. From, de means from, sedere, the stars. And I'm interested on if you guys are able to have a great relationship with desire. So until we get Chris up on here, how's your guys' relationship with desire? Because we've got desire and we've got want, which is lack, or the feeling of lack. And so for me, my relationship with desire is, it's kind of like a knock on the door from the stars. And I relate to it as it's from another reality. And you really have to get into quantum physics to understand the concept of multiple realities. It's laid out pretty clearly in quantum physics about how all of the universe is existing at once, but things like motion changes the direction of time and even how reality is formed. How's your ping pong game, says Jason. Well, I haven't been practicing, so I think we got a ping pong table in Miami, which is where we're going this weekend. So this weekend in Miami on Sunday, so October 6th, we have got a human garage transforming trauma event, and then we have a hands-on workshop a few days before that. On the 6th, on Sunday, transforming trauma event in Miami area. So if you're anywhere on the East Coast, it's there, and there was not going to be another event for a while. So guys, get down to Miami this weekend. I'm sure well, I shouldn't say I'm sure, but you guys know that there's a big storm that just swept through that area and probably had some cleansing energy. And Jason said that we're going to have a Ra versus Jason ping pong game, another live. So look out for that in this next coming week. Jay Dizzle, you want to shoot Christopher Witecki a message? I might actually sign off and sign on. Am I on the right time here? Noon. It is Monday. Yes, I am. How's your guys' relationship with desire? Here's another one. Are you able to detach from your desires? Meaning, trust, have faith. Because if we desire something and we are attached to it, then fear comes up, right? We fear not being granted this desire or this want. And fear is really confusion of an outcome. And faith, so there's faith versus fear, right? Faith is also the same thing. It's a confusion of an outcome. But the difference between faith and fear is that with faith, you guys know the difference between faith, right? It's like there's a trust, there's a background trust in there that all is going to work out as it is supposed to work out. And fear is a trust as well. It's an alignment that things are going to go as wrong as possible. And where we're oriented at depends on a whole bunch of things. It depends on our hormones. It depends on the time of the day. It depends on, I'm sure, astrology, as Chris a little bit on, like where we're at, if we're in faith or if we're in fear. He's here. He's in the back room. I'm bringing him on right now. How's it going?
Oh, Oh man.
Sound check.
Yes. Well, I don't know what the problem is, dude. I mean, I apologize. I was on the SJ profile instead of my profile, so I don't think you saw me. It's just me low balancing our brands. But my apologies.
Oh, all right.
But it's also oversight. I didn't notice it. Then I was screaming, "I'm here," and then I was screaming, "I'm here." So we'll get it down. I'm sorry for the bumpy.
All good. All good. Good. Everyone's going through all that anyways,
We are
which
because
is
we have a solar eclipse coming up here on Wednesday. That's the big issue. That's
oh
the
yeah.
big. That's the elephant in the room.
So what is that? So before we get into that, I have a question about this because I'm sure you get it a lot. Um, if one is paying attention to the energies, we'll call it astrology,
Yep.
are they more likely to manifest what is being paid attention to? And then how do we, as humans who have emotions like fear, how do we maintain the best sort of relationship with the knowledge that you're bringing here so that we don't
Okay.
fall?
So
Yeah.
people. Okay. Okay. So there's two. There's a couple of deep answers there. I mean, I think those are good questions. Faith. It's versus the faith versus faith versus free will kind of thing. It's one of those aspects you're kind of touching upon, one of the biggest questions of life, frankly. So what astrology is think of it like the weather. It's just the weather. It's the conscious weather of the times. Except rather than having a cold front, you have a Saturn front. Rather than having thunderstorms, you have a Cancer. You know what I mean? Like so. It's ultimately, and I'm not saying those signs are those signs, but I'm saying those signs can create those weather patterns better than other signs. So there's this weather that's going on. Um, and what I'm reporting to you is the weather because I don't have your personal data. I can't talk about each of your viewers right now and say what their internal weather is because their internal weather is under complete domain, under their complete control. They have their own weather going on inside of them, these emotional fronts. So, what we're telling you is, we're telling you here's the conscious weather of the environment. You know your weather. If you sign up for SiriusJoy.com, we'll help you know your weather, right? So, that's what we are. We help you report on your weather. Just like you have free will to step out into a tropical storm, you have free will to step out into this tropical storm and do whatever you want in it. You'll either get wet or you will stay dry or you'll be blown over. Like that is all based on your weather interacting with the weather and your weather, right? So by knowing astrology, does it make it more real? It informs you of the weather, so once informed, yes, you have a lot more power than uninformed. Will it take over your inner weather power? No. Well, it might in some cases, like in some extreme cases, like the solar eclipse. The solar eclipse is going to be such a weather storm that it could overwhelm your inner weather. Yes. But will free will cease to exist? Are you going to become like this zombie bot of Serious Joy where soon I will have you attack the White House? No. Like that's not going to happen. It's impossible. The architecture of incarnation doesn't allow for that to happen. Free will is the highest order of God to the point where an angel will not disrespect it. Even a bad entity will not disrespect God's commandment of free will. Evil will say, do you want to do evil? Good, sign here, initial here. And they say, look, God, they free willed into the evil thing. You can't punish us. So even evil does not encroach upon free will. That's how powerful the commandment is amongst the universe. Aliens, everyone, they know this, right? Even aliens don't interfere. Like everyone knows that, except humans, actually.
Right.
So, so that showing that we're the dumbest in some regards of the universe, like or the youngest, I should say, in a more kind way. So, no, it's not going to. I know that. I think what happens is when you start studying astrology or following astrology, you realize you have been just following the weather blindly. You realize
Mm.
you haven't been using a free will choice, and you realize that yeah, you fall right into the hands of the weather all the time. And there's this holy shift moment with the client where they're like, "Wait a second, do I have any free will?" And the answer is yes. You've been giving it to the weather. You've been giving it to
Right.
the weather. And what we're doing is actually giving the opportunity to opt out of the weather. We're saying, hey, you have a choice, actually. This is the default weather for all people asleep. They're just going to fall into it. And they're going to, the masses and everyone who are asleep and don't know that they can choose their raincoat of choice, yes, they tend to fall right into the weather. And it's fascinating to see. Even I, who know the weather, will read the weather and be like, shit, I thought I was planning that. The truth is that you're either in a synchronicity, you're either in synchronicity with the whole or not. And some people are blindly in synchronicity with the whole. Some people are consciously in synchronicity. Some who are consciously choosing to go against it, like and thinking that they can, be stronger than the storm. But astrology, astrology will only empower you. In fact, Serious Joy, for instance, I've said this last time, our subscribers usually about after a month or about a month, 45 days, maybe 2 months, start to actually live the weather faster. So
Hmm.
when you know the weather, you can start moving the weather faster. And so you start getting ahead on the weather. So
Right.
that by the time the weather hits you, you've built a lemonade stand before the hot zone. Before you've like got it built.
That's
So
funny. Yeah.
this goes into like wizarding potential, and then when you get really knowledgeable of the weather, you actually have the right to control it. So you become a controlling factor of the weather, an influencer, let's say, of the weather. Not the controlling factor like HARP is trying to do, but like, a controlling factor. Like you control at least your local weather. And what happens in the universe, it has this architecture that God put in. And the architecture is if you know more, you control more, period. If you know more, you control more. So there are actually layers of conscious weather manipulators all the way up through all the dimensions. And we are all falling into control of those because we're unaware. And so therefore we cannot control.
I'm gonna swing back and follow up with the question to that about like the power of control. But
Uh-huh.
I wanted to start right away with the astrological weather report for those that are here for that.
For that.
So you were mentioning solar eclipse happening in 2 days.
Yes. So, we are in this week you are ironically to your first question, this falls right in as if we scripted the show, Raw, which we both know we don't. We bear, no, I'm just kidding. Making joke there, I'll stop. Well, this is a very important week because what you're saying this week with this solar eclipse is this solar eclipse is an opportunity to raise the energy high enough. And that's what a solar eclipse does. A solar eclipse actually changes and raises the weather. Okay. It changes the weather. First, it raises the weather by the fact that the sun and the moon come together. Wow. And that's a no brainer. Now you got two rocks pulling on you, like a star pulling on you, because remember, gravity pulls, right? So we're pulled. We're pulled up out of our life. We're pulled up. There's a subtle pull. That pull is a conscious light body pull. Your light body is being pulled, like stretched up towards this exact degree and exact place of space. And the degrees place of space is 10 degrees Libra. Okay. So we're all being pulled towards 10 degrees Libra. What it does is it forces you to see, oh shit, look at that. Look at this. I actually, this comes apart and I can see within this and maybe I can mess with this. So the human realizes like, oh, I can change something I didn't know I could change. And this is where God comes in, 3 or 4 times a year and says, you can control the weather. You can control the weather. Like just kind of showing us that we have this ability to see above where we are now. What?
So
Yeah, go ahead.
so you're saying the 10-degree Libra gives us that, or the solar eclipse gives
The
us the
sun,
ability to see?
the moon and the sun lining up to a perfect degree creates some sort of a gravitational something. You know,
Right.
there's something that gets funky there when you put the two batteries in like that. So you got two batteries that line up. Now, from a conscious perspective, the batteries are your heart and your emotions, where your emotions currently are now, right? At the time of the event. So that's very important because the ingredient that can change everything is where your emotions are right now at the very top of the event, right? So really the maneuvering of this is emotional. Heart is slower intentional. Moon is more, you know, faster intentional. The moon, our emotions are the fastest moving part of us. They're swirling around of us like a tornado. So what happens is when you align these two together, you create like a super gravity, right? A super gravity where they become more, there's more gravity, and the whole Earth gets pulled towards, kind of like God's like, come here, like so. The universe is God saying, come here, Earth, like I gotta talk to you. And in that moment,
Literally.
yeah, and in that moment, I got to talk to you to the tune of step 10 Libra. Okay.
Okay.
So now what's step 10 Libra? Step 10 Libra is the consciousness that envelopes your relationship to yourself. So 10 is always an envelope. 10 is like, God's like, okay, stick all these and put them in an envelope. That's 10, and that's 20, right? So 0 to 10, 19 and 11 to 19, and 20 to 29 are all envelopes, which we call decans, okay? So when you get to the top of the envelope, you actually control the decan underneath. Remember, I said series of control. With the step numbers, the same thing. 3 has control over 2, has control over 1, and so on. So from the down, this is how the outside world can control us. On the inside, is because from us, we're all stacked in a control pyramid from the inside out. That makes sense. So what happens is that God is saying, okay, now that you are lifted out of your normal 10, when we put you down, what should it be? Right? When we put you back, when we put you back, what should the orchestration be? You know, we're going to pull you out by your hair, and you can change your clothes and your shoes real quick before you go back in. You know what I mean? That's sort of like what happens. And in other words, you can change what you envelope, step 10 of your inner relationship, step 0 through 9 of Libra, right? These are inner relationships. You can envelope these.
Yeah.
So we've been looking at what we call it, Serious Joy, the mirage. This is your mirage. This is how you're mirrored to yourself. This is how you're assembled to yourself to a death do you part and after, as far as the mirage vows are concerned. So up until from 0 to 9 this whole time and over the weekend, you might have had a lot of conflicts and issues with relationships you have with other people because where the fire tends to happen is above step 10, the fires in your life, and the fires are you and your accountant are pissed at each other, blah, 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 all these sort of what seem to be irreconcilable differences between certain people. What's actually happening is the bottom of that consciousness, which is your relationship to yourself, it is in flux. And because it's the root structure, your relationship to yourself is the root structure of all of your foliage above ground. Everything that you're currently growing may or may not live, right? Like, because if you change the root structure, which is how you relate to yourself, all these things are on alert. So the alarms that are going off in our life are all the things in our relationships, but the power is in the root, where you root yourself and where you don't root yourself, right? Where you plant yourself. And plant yourself goes, well, I'm comfortable with just not giving a fuck. That's where you're rooted. And you're rooted here and you're rooted there. And so we have these conscious ways of being. I insist to be this way on the inside. I insist my inside's going to be this way, right? And so that determines, what's going to happen above ground energetically. So basically what's happening is the entire earth is about to be transplanted, right?
Mm.
So to use the same structure of a flower, of a plant, we're all going to be pulled up by the roots and planted in another conscious timeline. And this happens to do with what it's based on is who you are to yourself. Who you are to yourself determines what garden you end up in, the Garden of Eden or the Garden of, I don't know, like the Garden of Hell, we'll call it.
That,
or,
yeah. Yeah. And that's because it's happening in Sept 10 Libra, right? So
this particular it wouldn't normally, like, sometimes it's not a transplant. Sometimes, we're going to modify the DNA of where it grows.
Okay.
Sometimes it can be any degree in the entire plant.
I just have to mention something just because we can go in another direction, but I'm a Sept 10 Libra.
Oh,
and
whoa! We're about to see a transplant live, folks. Tune in. The transplant's about to happen live. We'll be live tomorrow night, Saturday, Wednesday. Sponsored by
the Eclipse.
So,
But a lot of what you just said, I was journaling the other day of my mission, and I actually used the word envelop, but it was in the context of me supporting humans to expand their concept of self to envelop the totality of the universe.
Okay. So where do you think? Yeah, that's crazy. Although, as a fellow gardener, you're digging up the wrong plant or the wrong thing. You're looking at the branches. You're not looking at the root.
So
now what you're doing is what everyone does. So I'm glad you're doing it, because this is the issue I try to get across, and it's very complicated.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear what you have to say. I feel like I'm on the right track, but what are you going to say in response to that?
That currently, if you're only planning on changing the branches and where it branches off to in the human relationships, you may be creating branches that aren't rooted properly.
Right. Yeah, so my focus is definitely always on the self. So I think that's where my main, that's why I went to school for psychology. That's why I own gyms. That's like everything has to do with the self in relationship to everything. I just put the envelope around the universe where you're saying the main focus of the envelope is around the self as opposed to,
I'm saying that to both you as a friend, like, dude, it's around yourself, not the branches, and the earth. Right now, it's about the self, not the branches.
God.
It may or may not be a lifetime pursuit. In your case, it's a lifetime pursuit.
Hmm.
Your whole pursuit is that envelope. Basically,
Right.
my advice to you as a client would be when the grasshopper focuses on the roots, the branches will grow. When the grasshopper focuses on the branches, the roots will die.
Okay, that's
Is
amazing.
your
That's
wife
amazing.
around? I'm kidding.
She,
Just kidding.
she's
Just
not,
kidding. I'm being
but
dramatic, but for a reason. Yeah.
yeah,
They start to die.
yeah,
They start to atrophy. So what happens is like when you are a person who's meant to focus inward and you focus outward, then what happens is because you're focused outward, all you're doing is giving your inward energy to the outer world. And you're not here to receive from the outer world. You're here to receive from the roots. That's where you're receiving the dirt is where where your nutrients are, not in how much people like your flowers, right? So to focus on the flowers and not the dirt will cause the roots to atrophy and start to pull away. That means the client pulls away from life, and the client blames the fact that no one likes their flowers. No one likes my flowers. No one buys my flowers. Why not my flowers? And the truth is like, no, the roots aren't supported. That's why no one's picking the flowers.
I hope
They
everyone's
know it's
listening to that because it's not like, yeah, this is super relevant for a
yeah,
lot of people.
everyone. I mean, this is like part of the main things that people understand. This is one of the main tests you got to pass for ascension. Like you can't ascend until you realize the architecture of incarnation. That it starts with you. It
Right.
starts with you. I know it looks like in the simulation that you were born through your mom and all that stuff, but the truth is that entire process is coming from you. It's all coming from your heart chakra. You are a living, walking reality generator, and you are generating this reality you see all the time through the constructs of the 11 steps in your heart, and that's just how God built it. And unless you go to like another reality that God offers, the rules won't change. Those are the rules of this world. Period. There's no conversation about it being flexible, and science will never change it, ever. Because science is a child of God, not an equal.
Right. Right. It's an aspect.
Yeah, it's a
So
descendant.
when it comes to things like solar eclipse,
Yep.
is there any benefit to being outside, like being more in the energy versus inside, or does it not matter so much?
I'm told so. I'm told so, but I don't understand those physics. I'm told that natives would observe. Like they didn't hide. Like so they had a natural understanding. I think there's a photon like bonus point. So for instance, the solar eclipse that happened in April, I deliberately put myself under the rays of. I went so far as to be under the rays of that light. And under the rays of that light really is when you can see the eclipse. So if you can't see the eclipse on Earth, you couldn't have got gained from that particular extra bonus, which means that, like, so to speak, the eclipse affects everyone everywhere. Okay. But if you happen to see it, you get it more. So, I wanted that extra dose because it happened to hit my weakest spot in my chart. And so I was giving the weakest spot in my chart the most sunlight in that moment. And I would say it worked. It was complete healing of the issue, like entire closure of the issue. So what this comes down to today and through tomorrow, because now through Wednesday, you have your final chance to modify the envelope. And that means you have your final chance to decide what your focus will be. So, to put in context in your chart, since you're a living example of this lesson, Ra, and here at this moment, with the sun, who we call Ra, by the way,
Right.
Ra is the sun, that's the parent, which is short for Ray. Ray is the child of a Ra, Ra Ray, right? So a Ray makes a Ra, a Ra makes a Ray, just as Ra leads to Ray when you add a Y, ray of light. So Ra is the energy before the ray, okay? So the energy before the for the ray is your heart. So you have to first figure out, um, you have to first figure out, what does your heart want most? What will bring out the greatest fire? What will bring out the greatest fire about you with you? You with you. Nothing to do with plants, flowers, people, other things, insects, diseases. Nothing to do with anything but you. That's it. If you were alone in a dark room and that was your reality, what would your relationship to yourself be? Right? And what do you want it to be? Ultimately is what the question is. Now, people will have some fundaments to that. Like, fundamentally, I want to feel loved by myself. I want to love myself. I want to really enjoy myself. I want to be proud of myself. I want to feel myself grow. I want to feel myself experience lots of things. I want to feel myself in weird, strange things. I want to experience myself in all these different types of ways of life, right? That's first and foremost. And that's you kind of in heaven talking. I mean, that's like back in the conversation with heaven. Like, before I jump down, we're going to get these features, right? And these features of all the great things you'll experience on the ride. And the experience of the ride is experiencing yourself in the flesh. That's actually what this ride is, experiencing yourself in the flesh. People get here and they think, oh, the ride's about IBM or about Trump or it's about politics. So we've made the ride about other things, and God's up in heaven going, they don't have their hands on the controls. They've got their hands on the damn screen. Why are they touching the screen all the time? Why aren't they on the controls? Right? Like, I don't get it. I guess they made it too real. Like he's having back to the drawing board, Earth 4, so that's the big problem right there. And if you believe that you are stuck on a ride and you have to, Lord Jesus Christ will bring you there, I'll tell you honestly, Jesus will bring you there, but he's going to tell you first and foremost, that ain't the ride you think you're not on the ride you think you're on. What Jesus' real message was, you are the ride. I am the way, you are the way. Basically, you are the ride. He's trying to say as simply as he can that you're what it's all about. You know what I mean? And it was just so uncomprehensible, because up until then, all the belief structure and the supporting, everything in the garden looked like that was not the case. That was not the wisest men at the time did not say that stuff. So the real core issue is step 0. Are you or are you not in charge of the ride? You have to make that question. If you don't answer that question as a yes or no, then nothing is going to work really good. Everything will be half-assed because you're not bold. You're not rooted. You're not rooted in the prime directive that I have the right to control the ride. That's my ride. And so that takes a lot to accept. It took me a long time to accept too. My dad raised me with these beliefs. I think it was like age 5 before I accepted that. But I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But no, my dad did raise me with all this belief. So I was actually raised in this belief structure already. And my dad is not the way. That's the thing. He's not the way. So it's a paradox of like, don't follow him, but follow his knowledge. Like, it was a weird, but so you have to fundamentally believe that. Then the next step is what will be your relationship, what I call mirage, to each of your states of awareness. What is your relationship to your heart going to be? That's step 1. What's your relationship to your emotions going to be? What's your relationship to your feeling, your beliefs going to be? Step 3, your relationship to where you belong with yourself. Where do you belong with yourself where do you belong with yourself? Right? Which of these are, which is ruler, basically. I belong is like, who will be the ruler in you, right? Mm-hmm. Most people think the ruler is their mind, 5, right? That's not how God built it. So you're not there yet. The ruler is the heart, step 1. Like, that's the ruler. That's the way it's intended. Yes, you can drive the car in a sloppy way from step 5. You can drive the car from any of those rulerships, but you're not going to get to step 1. I mean, it makes logical sense. If I own step 1, I own the whole tower, right? Step 0 is the basement. So it's like, it's a no-brainer logically that the heart wins, right? But what's my relationship to all these states of awareness? Okay. And then that gets enveloped in step 10 and becomes a cohesive, conscious, sovereign territory, so to speak. And it's a territory that's sovereign. When I say that is, everything from the 10 down will have its own government and talk to the other governments. That's how consciousness is built. It has like the 10 is the part that talks to the 2 sides. Okay, inner self say they got to pee. Outer self, we're stuck in traffic. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, there's always that like, diplomacy and negotiation between inner and outer going on that we don't pay attention to. And step 10 is, where that conversation happens, through the barrier of 0. 1 being the tower, holding the tower together, 0 being the elevator that goes between the two floors. It's really constructed simply if you think about it.
And after step 10, we're there's an 11.
Yep.
I mean, we keep on going, but actually, to tell you the truth, I'm not. I'm
Oh.
I'm a step 19, which
He's a net 10. There's a confusion. Yeah.
so it's not really a 10.
Yeah,
But
it is. It actually is. It is. It's actually explains your schizophrenia. You have two personalities. I just dropped that lightly. You have two jobs. You have two jobs
okay.
and 3 seats. So it's a very complicated step. It's one of the hardest steps, 19,
Oh,
because
good.
you have well, as a soul, you're starting to think with for all 3 dimensions. It's the first degree before mastery. So what you have to do in 19 is you have to add on a whole nother extension of yourself to get there. So 19 is I'm working, I'll get there one day. I'm working. So it's like climbing the ladder, shooting winning the rat race. Most people stay stuck at 19, like they just can't get past it because you have to divide your conscious into 3 to do it. Of course, 3 is a magic number. The 3 states you have to divide yourself in. Part of you has to be focusing on the 19. Then the next part of you has to become an envelope and envelope everything down to 12, down to 11. So part of you has to focus on the envelope, and then the other part of you has to drive, and that part of you in the very little, like you're driving really in the very third little window bubble, which is step 2. I feel. So you control that consciousness through your feelings. That's how you control it and pull it off. Is the net 2, the final net 2, like the pyramid 2? That's the pyramid. There is what that is. So that pyramid is like a conscious, like steering wheel. Sort of like those old fire trucks that had a steering wheel and the guy in the back. It's sort of the same thing. That there's steering wheels, going up to the neck, and there's steering wheels going up to the from the pelvis, from the legs to the midsection of our life, and that's really the throat and that those are the steering wheels. And if I were to talk to Gary, I bet you that's 10 and 19 right there.
Mm-hmm.
In the
Yeah.
body. Mm-hmm.
We're getting questions. How do you learn your step? And so you can answer that. And I also want to say, guys, if you want to ask Chris questions, he's back here Thursday at noon Pacific time, where that's more oriented towards him working with people live on air.
Yes, 100%. So going back to this eclipse, just to put it on ahead, like today is step 8. What's your relationship going to be, Libra, to your commitment to yourself? Are you uncommittal? Did you not show up for the vote? Are you absent? Like, what is your commitment to yourself? Today's your commitment to yourself. Technically, you could have been asleep through all this transit and just gotten to 8. Just show up in Congress for the vote, and you can skip. Although you didn't talk to the rest of your constituents, so I hope you know them. And you're deciding for them. But ultimately, the overall decision is.
Do you guys see me or him moving? Because he's frozen on my end, and I got the circle, the thinking circle. Chris is in Palm Springs, hence the palm trees, but I guess there's palm trees everywhere. Did you guys know that palm trees are native to Florida, but they're not native to California? I just realized that Florida and California kind of sound similar. I wonder if there's some etymological relationship there. When you go to Florida, you're going to see swamp everywhere. Actually, the first time I was flying, one of the first times I was paying attention flying into Florida, I was looking out of the airplane window and I was trying to figure out what was going on with the clouds, because I just saw it was a swamp, but I didn't know it at the time, but it was just like as far as I could see from the airplane. And then there was some lines going through it, and I was like, what are those lines in the clouds? And I was like, then the clouds look a little weird as well. And I'm looking at this swamp, and my wife Carolina, who's sitting right next to me, I'm like, look at these, look what's going on here. And she's like, I don't know if it's called the swamp, but to me it's a swamp. But the Everglades, yeah, that's right. Thank you. That's the Everglades. And anyways, we land in Miami, and the whole state is essentially built up on this water. It's built up. You can see the construction of, I think it's limestone or whatever. It's like they built Miami on top of water, swampy water. And when you drive through the center of Florida, you see palm trees are actually growing out of water, like a few feet deep water. There's palm trees like every few feet throughout the entire state of Florida. And if you think about a palm tree fruit, I mean, there's different types of fruit that palm trees use for seeds, but one of them is coconuts, right? And coconuts are filled with water. It's kind of like oranges need very wet environments because oranges are filled with water. Coconuts are also filled with water. And so it makes sense. California is more like a desert. Oh, here he is. He's coming back. He said his phone overheated. And he's coming from Palm Springs, which is definitely a desert. Chris, I can't add you. It's saying pin, add as moderator, or unfollow, or remove from live video, or block Christopher Witecki. Let me see if accept. All right, let's see if that brings you on. So all palm trees in California were imported here, and they grow here, but it's not their natural environment. To end my little, what's it called? I accepted you, Chris. Try. Oh, here we go. Let's try that. Just time killer, I guess, or time filler would be a better, more accurate statement. Hello.
Hello. We're now in the house of Chris
Yeah.
Witecki because my
Fair.
iPhone 15 Max keeps overheating in not even 100-degree weather in the shade, folks. I'm blaming iPhone. Okay. Yeah.
iPhones are tricky. You know, you can't even take them below 32 degrees or the batteries freeze.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's sort of like a fragile life form, isn't it? Like that we're forced to care. So, anyways, I won't even. I mean, it's been cooler here in Palm Springs, so I don't know. I'm gonna have to stay indoors until further notice.
For the next
You know.
20 minutes.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I'm sorry. For the next 20 minutes, you have to hear an echo. So I don't remember where we were. You'll have to put us back
I,
in touch.
I started talking about palm trees, so
I
I
heard
have no
that.
idea.
Yeah, we went to palm trees. California replanted palm trees in Florida, I hear. Yeah.
Yeah,
And do those transplanted palm trees, speaking of transplants, I mean, how do they do out
exactly.
there in Florida? How do they do out there?
That's crazy that they're they do fine. I mean, they're everywhere. But in Florida, they're like everywhere, like coming up in you know what, there's I told you about 10,000 palms next kind of where you live. There's oasis, which is basically just like a pond or a swamp in the middle of the desert, and you'll see really how palm trees are supposed to grow, which is just like one on top of it of each other, and that's how they grow in a swamp. But in California desert, it's just like wherever someone plants them is
Mm,
where they'll grow.
plants and waters them. Yeah.
Yeah.
The key is the
So
water.
there's the eclipse, which we've been talking a lot about. Is that
Yeah.
completely eclipsing anything else that's going on this week, or is there still other variant energies coming through on top of that?
Well, there's some variance. I mean, first and foremost, I mean, it's dominating the whole week. So it is dominating the whole week. Just like that storm blew through the Carolinas, like that storm is going to dominate their lives for at least a week, right? Some people have to have it hit literally. And so when there's a storm that happens literally, you are really asleep. Like it's the assumption of us light workers, like that part of the country for some reason really
Right.
asleep. Wherever it hits, and it's like it's not a punishment, it's a reaction. The storm is drawn to the vacancy. The storm is drawn to the vacancy. Like y'all are not awake enough. You're not controlling your weather. And so the weather's like, whoa, we're not being drawn. Like I think the weather gets pulled there. I think the weather pattern of a hurricane is literally, the consciousness that's asleep. And so if it goes over, it wakes you up. And what do you say? It's a wake up call. So I think there's that complete interaction. So I think above humans, there's a whole bunch of, controlling consciousness that lead into the weather and lead into all sorts of things. You can lead all the way up. You can graduate. You can go all the way up to God. As far as the ladder is concerned, it's not a stairway; it's the ladder. So what about this week? Well, there's a difference between pre-eclipse and post-eclipse. Okay, pre-eclipse is stormy weather. So your storm's on the inside. You're storming. Your weather's storming on the inside. It has been storming probably since Friday for me, where suddenly there's just tons of storms going on. And the way it works is like I can't. So the way it works is we have our eyes on the garden. We don't have our eyes on the roots. And so as we're being stormed, we're blaming different things in the garden, but really it's our root structure that's the problem. You're not planted in the right garden because you don't know your roots, right? So knowing your roots knows you where to be planted. And I'm sure these palm trees are like, hell yeah, I'll live in that new garden. I've been living in the desert this whole time. Like this is great. It's waters all the time. Like they're happy. Like I can see they're going well. But maybe they're pigs, and that's why God put them in California to like keep them from like eating too much. Like so. It's interesting how when we mess with the garden, but so pre the storm that moves up, which is what this is. This is an electromagnetic storm from the sun and the moon coming together, our heart emotions colliding. You are all stirred up on the inside, and chances are you don't watch this program with Ron Christopher, and you don't know that although you're seeing stuff happen in the garden, right now you have to go in the bunker and focus on the roots, right? And you just ignore the garden. It may not even be there when you come back up. It may not even be there. You may find that you were transplanted to a whole new world like Wizard of Oz, and you're a stranger in that land. Like that's possible depending on how asleep you were at the roots. If you're completely asleep, the garden might have left years ago, and you might have been trying to plant some foreign garden. Don't even know you're in Florida.
And I mean, this is completely relevant what's going on in my life. And since I'm the one talking to you, like I would just want to validate what you're saying because there's so much happening in the garden for us, and it's just bringing up the concept of paying attention to ourself and not so much, the lady that hit our brand new car on the road and the fact that I backed the brand new car up into the garage and shattered the back window. Like this has all happened in the last few days. Like, and it's
all these wheelbarrow crushes.
But it's like, I mean, and then you mentioned the hurricane, but we also have we each get to experience our own individual storms in our own lives, but it all ultimately just has to do with our relationship with ourselves amidst these, we'll call them events that happen.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so this is fascinating because the greater picture of the astrology says the children are waking up. That's the greater picture. We're in the dawn of the age of Aquarius. We are. This is the dawn of it. It has dawned now. It's starting to dawn on you that it may not be what you think it is. It's starting to dawn on you that maybe you don't have the right user's manual to this ride. A lot of things are starting to dawn on you. This is the dawn of the age of Aquarius. We get goosebumps. They really like this language. So the point is like, one point of this is like did you know moment. Did you know you're actually driving the ride? Think about that. Like gone is the universe. Like so. Sometimes it depends on where you are. For some of us who've been trying to figure out why I don't get it, this is it. We get it now. Light bulb's going off. So this particular event, this hurricane, we'll call it a spiritual hurricane. This spiritual hurricane is happening at Sept 10, which means that it's awakening the truth to everyone about how it all works. And that's first and foremost like the intention of it. I want y'all to know you're driving the ride. It's about your roots. And in fact, at Sept 10, God is basically saying, I mean, the way we, peons look at God is like, if he sent a hurricane to Sept 10, we're kind of thinking that's what he's concerned with. Like, we're assuming that's the case. We might learn later it's like for Sept 40 that we didn't even know there was a 40. But right now, like it looks like the volcano god is mad, right? Like, so we're like the volcano god is mad, and we realize that we've done something wrong. You know what I mean? Like, so we're waking up to that fact. Now, if you're already awake and know this, it's time to fly. Like, so it depends on where you are. For some, it's like, oh, you know this, you've always known this. Here's the proof. Here's the evidence. Here's the moment you've been waiting for. the moment you've been coming on Earth for hundreds of times. This is the moment. This is the moment where you jump with the dawn. You jump with the sun. The dawn of the age of Aquarius. Like, ooh, I want to go there. So the ooh, I want to go there is okay. Then realize you drive the ship in here. Like until you realize that everything around you is controlled by how you treat yourself. The controls are how you treat yourself. That's the control. So mostly through response, not initiation. So the way you respond inside to the insult, the way you respond inside to the person hitting your wheelbarrow, the way you respond to inside to the person disrespecting your value, all these insults in the garden is because the way you treat your roots. Period. That's how the architecture is built. You're not changing the architecture. No one has that right? So because it's designed for free will and it's genius, it's brilliant because it honors both the individual and the others at the time. Like when you start to see how God built it all, or whoever God had built it all. I doubt God actually did it. Like I bet you still is a being. I know it's a being between God and us actually, but I can't prove it yet. Then basically we come to this moment where we now start to control. We really can control the plants. So if you really want to control what your garden looks like, you have to know it comes from the way you respond to yourself on the inside, and you must create optimum responses to yourself and treat yourself like God treats you if you want to get the most control in the garden. And so the age of Aquarius is we were in the age of Pisces controlling things from the garden, but now in the age of Aquarius, control is being moved down to the root because we're one step closer to knowing our truth of who we really are. So we're moving from the illusion into the truth. So delusion, illusion into the truth. So age of Pisces was, no, my garden's better. No, my garden's better. No, mine. I've got the better garden. So like we've been fighting over two versions of Garden of Eden, assuming that's where the battle was, unaware of the fact that the battle, it's not even a battle. That's a garden term. There is no battle when you're one with the earth and you're one with the dirt and you're one with the water. There's no battle. There's cooperation only. In that next level, there's no battle isn't even a word that exists at the root system. And so what you do is you sort of take your shirt off when you ascend because you realize this illusion isn't true. What was true was naked underneath it. That's what's true. This is what's true. What's true is you. That's it. And your opinion of you and your treatment of you. So what's happening is people are manifesting fires in the garden so that to alert them of a root problem, of a root issue. There's a root issue here you're not looking at, which is why your fruit is dying, which is why this relationship is dying, which is why this is pulling back, which is why this isn't bearing fruit. It's all a root disease, dis-ease in the roots, right? So if you learn that, the first part of the hurricane is from the roots to the ground. And then the second part of the hurricane, which is from Wednesday night until Friday, well, actually, Wednesday night until Sunday, okay, longer storm than the first one. The roots was not too bad. And then just like, whoa, is actually all in the garden. It's all garden-based storm. So you're seeing right now, what people are seeing and feeling is the intro, the opening of a greater storm. And yeah, I'll stop there.
Okay,
Raw is reacting live on camera here.
I'm going to try and make a correlation just to help people
Go ahead.
out.
Yeah, do.
Like how, because for me, when these events happen in life, I love it because it's confirmation that I am the creator of this. And it's really hard for a lot of people to see how they can create somebody being mean to them.
Right.
And it's really easy. And like, what would the purpose be? Like, how can you use somebody being mean to you to build your relationship with yourself? And psychologically or self-development wise, like these things that trigger us. That's a really good portal into figuring out when the first time this exact feeling happened.
Mm-hmm.
And you might see that your dad used to make you clean up the room before eating dinner. And so you have this negative relationship with having to do something in order to get something.
Right.
And so this person now, 40 years later, is making you do something in order to get something. And you're having this 7-year-old response within yourself where you want to throw the doll at this person.
Right.
And that's how the people that we think are being mean to us or disrespecting us are really just triggering back to the first time it happened. And we're usually responding as a 2-year-old to 7-year-old to that meanie person. And that allows us to resolve that. We go back, we breathe through it, or we do some journaling to resolve that initial trauma so that the next time this happens, there's not that same response within yourself. It doesn't create a storm feeling, and it's just an event that happens, and you have essentially conquered or harmonized this event that's living within you.
Yes, I would mostly agree. Like, your analysis of your dad and all that sort of stuff was analysis of the garden. So you're looking at the garden. You're looking at the like, crap. Why do these plants die and these ones across the ways thrive? Like, why did this relationship die to this? Why is my garden not flourishing? Is basically it. And so the fires are all witnessed. And you remember when you were a young sapling and you just became a sprout, and your dad at a sprout level banged you on the head, and so the thing went now started growing this way, and that's what happens. But the truth
Yes.
is deep down into the roots in the dirt, your soul from a past life, which is coming back as a seed. That
There you
seed,
go.
okay, past life seed. Doink, you plant the seed from the past life into Mother Earth. This is all working out. It's kind of perfectly, isn't it?
I love it.
And I know. And so you plant this seed. Now the seed itself had an issue because it was made from a tree that had dad beat it. And that was made from a tree that had dad beat it. And that was made from a tree that had dad. So we're talking about a long lineage of fucked up seeds, right? So the screwed up seed is planted into Mother Earth. It immediately starts to, like, its root immediately gets close to the root of the dad relationship. And so at the root level, the two at the root level have their own clash, which is two parts of yourself. Your dad represents the authoritative part of yourself. It's still not even dad.
Right.
It's not dad. It's not really your dad. It's really, well, it is your dad if you want to go really quantum. It's the God part of you that is commanding the rest of you to be you. So the bossy part of God, the bossy part of God that gets bossy, which is what most of the Bible is, just his bossy
Right.
part, right? Doesn't talk about all those other parts.
Yeah.
His bossy part basically comes in on its sweet innocent part of itself and says, "Sweet innocent, no," right? And this is your bossy part is saying no to your sweet innocent part,
Yes.
which in astrology would be the Sun conjunct Saturn, right? Sun conjunct Saturn in your chart, your bossy and your sweet are forever entwined. They're fucked up the whole rack, okay? Until you decide to separate and bring them back. So what happens is at the root level, your bossy and your sweet are coming to a conflict. The root keeps growing up, and so the disease of whatever that is grows with the root and grows all the way up, and then in reality sprouts a plant that does the same thing as a plant. So yes, it's true. The roots match the plant.
That just also is a good analogy for the peeling of layers, because
Yes.
there's many different layers to this. Like we can literally go all the way back to like reincarnation and lineage and
Everything. I mean, the earth is a full representation of how spirituality works. The earth's intention was a actually learning tool for the collective conscious. It's a library learning tool. It's like a science museum. Like Earth
right.
is God's science museum. You go there, like, oh, this is how that works. Oh, cool. Oh, this is how that works. Cool. See, this is what happens. You have nuclear war. Like, it's all designed to just be a big learning library for other souls. Is what its design is. But then some punks got in and started burning books. Another story. But we do have critters that are infesting this Earth, right? But that said, yes, it's amazing. You've seen like in your field where like broccoli looks like lungs and walnut looks like brain. That's the whole thing. God's like, hey, I'm going to try and make it as simple as possible. The walnut looks like the thing that's going to help.
Right.
God did his best. Like, sounds like two syllables. You're like, come on, kids, figure it out. Like it's built in so simply. It's like ridiculous. It's ridiculous. So,
Yeah.
So what happens is, just to finish the original statement is, so from Thursday onward, from Thursday to Sunday, Saturday, it will be a hurricane. Like, what I mean
Another one.
is, even if well, the
Oh,
one,
all
what we've
right.
seen is actually, what we've seen is like the proliferary, like, warning, right,
Okay.
that's coming. Um, and I do think it's a storm. I think everyone, I'm not being dramatic, and doesn't mean you're going to die in a storm. I mean, most of us live in storms, most of us. So it'll be the same percentage of odds. I think, some people will have a tragedy happen where they're like, I'm out of this game. I'm restarting it. This sucks. I'm going back. Forget. And so people will reboot and like, I'm out of the matrix. I don't want to play anymore. And it's like, okay, come back up for air. So there's that. But for the most part, it means that people have been it's a huge storm because most people are not thinking about the roots. So it's almost like, you and I should be sportscasters. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, play a game. None of them know they're playing a game. It's, so we have all these players, they don't know they're players. Like, that's how things can get, when no one knows they're the ones driving, which is probably what's happening with those two cars that hit you. I mean, the irony is you have two cars that hit you. So there are two people who don't know where they're driving. And who do they hit? The guy who doesn't know he's driving from the roots.
The same person driving their car.
Yeah, pretty much. Oh, yes, actually, it is. That's true. Usually, you meet like an opposite counterpart of yourself, um, to show you just what you look like in the opposite.
Right.
It's
It's
an
like the mirror.
opposite rearview mirror. It's an opposite rearview mirror. That's
Exactly.
who hits you. Is opposite rearview mirror. Absolutely. We're starting to get to the secrets of the universe here. So that means, kind of like all you can do for the storm is fortify your roots and see how it goes. There's really nothing you can do. You want to stay open to your feelings, what they tell you, step 12 on Friday. Open to what your feelings tell you on Friday. So it's like you're gonna have to feel your way through the storm on Friday, and then Saturday, step 13 at 4. That's the transplant. 13 is like, okay, you get transplanted at that point into a new garden. Okay, and so in the transplanting process, when you're being pulled up by the hair, flown through the sky, and plugged into Florida, in that moment, all you can do is remember what you believe. Do you believe that God's going to hurt you? Do you believe that you're intended for bad or good here? And basically, that belief is actually the hand going, oh, 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 oh. Like, so the hand is like,
Where are we going?
changing. Right. The hand's like, I don't know where this little one wants to go, like, and it's like, oh, tell me, little one, it's like, and the little one has to say what he believes or what she believes. And so that's how we're planted, is by what we believe. So this is actually, now we're at a really quantum moment. So since we're here together, we should go this extra 9 yards. What you see in the media and all this propaganda is to convince the plants in what they believe, not what you believe. Because what they're trying to do is hijack the transplant. That's their strategy. They're going to come in at 4. I'm getting goosebumps. They're going to come in at 4 and try to tell you to believe something else in hopes that you get wrongly transplanted into the wrong garden,
Nice.
a garden that they don't want to be in themselves.
Before you came on, I was talking about desire and us wanting what another desires. It's not really paying attention to ourselves.
Correct.
But that's what I didn't even know why I was talking about that topic, but that's what the media is. It's a programming of our intentions, of our emotional states, what we're going to tell ourselves is going to fulfill us. They're just programming us.
Well, the
But that
program
goes
has to
back
think
to
that it's this. Yeah, the garden is where it's designed. They're telling you, hey, every decision is made in the garden, and in the garden, we're the number one news network in Florida. You know what I mean? Like, in the Garden State. Like, so they're kind of claiming that they know the garden better than you know the garden. That the eyewitness to what's going on in the garden. Without them, you wouldn't even know what's going on in the garden. You should be
yeah.
choosing from them. Now, what they're not saying is, don't tell them it's actually chosen at the root.
And
Like, the
that's the
truth is,
free will thing too. You're saying it's okay. Like you're volunteering, you're accepting the advice from them, and then you are the one that creates this,
correct.
not them.
Nothing to do with them at all. In fact, if you're looking at them, you're actually avoiding. You're actually cutting off like 45% of your power. If you're looking at the garden when you're being transplanted, you're actually going to be transplanted 55% of where you're transplanted will be wrong. You'll be 55% away from where you should have been.
Yeah,
Like
And
because you
how
were looking
long
at
do we have before that, or before another transplant comes? Just to give like importance
well,
on paying attention to this.
this is very important because there's no more transplant. I don't see any transplant scheduled for the rest of our lifetime. Like this is it.
Okay, okay,
Like,
people,
I
let's
mean,
pay attention here.
well, and so what happens if you're in the wrong garden? You just have to fucking move your plant yourself. It's really heavy and it's
All
really
right.
hard. And you're a plant, you don't have muscles. Like it's hard. You can do it. You're not, you can do it. There's lots of ways to do it. We'll teach you a series on how to do it all the time. You're still controlled by your roots. So, what happens is when you go back to the roots and you're transplanted, then miracles happen like floods. And so the floods like flood you down the plane to where you belong. So God kind of creates little miracles that'll flood you along if you figure it out later or late. So there are exits if you end up in the wrong garden. Um,
I think we brought a lot together in the last 10 minutes. I didn't want to cut you off before, like, if there's something else profound
um,
to end on.
no pressure. No, no, just that, at the end of the day, so I just want to help people to control between now and the eclipse. It's all about how you respond to yourself. That's 100% of it. Once the eclipse happens, it's how you continue to respond to yourself that steers anything. And it's what you feel and what you believe that steers. So by your feelings, by your beliefs. Notice I did not once say mind. If it's in your mind, you've already lost. That's not where you can't be in the mind. You have to focus on feeling and belief, feeling and belief. That's it. Feeling and belief. Those are the two steering wheels. Okay. So how you feel, how you believe, and you won't have any data or anything until you land. So just stop trying to guess how it's going to turn out because you're screwing it up. Like you've got binoculars looking at the runway and not flying the plane. So it's like quit that. Like what the fuck?
You're trying
What
to
the hell?
find the runway.
Yeah, everyone's like, "Where's the runway? I don't see the runway." It's like the plane's going down. You know what I mean?
It's
So
crazy that this is what's going on in my dreams. This is what's going on in my, like this stuff's popping up for me to focus on. Like I had a dream, like if it wasn't for money, like money is essentially like an illusion, and we need to be doing, like, that question. If money was no object, what would you be doing every day? But it's just that's becoming more real for me. Like this
yes,
week.
yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, you're finding what really makes the money, which is the roots. Like it's all the roots because the root is the expression of God. That is what you're building is this new expression of God. You are the latest and greatest of what God offers. That's true. Human beings are the latest and greatest of what God offers. This is God's top model as far as creation.
There we go.
From what I understand, this is the top model. Humans are the top model. This is the best he's done. This is the best he's done yet. It's the latest and greatest version. And there's been billions of versions, right? And the aliens who are older are watching us for that reason.
Yes.
Because they're the new model. That's why they're so obsessed with us. Like, oh, here's the new model. How's the new model doing? I told you, a new model and all that. Like, they're having their own bets and their own casino shit, and having their own fun, because they were once the new model too, so that's how consciousness grows and expands. The other thing to know as you get into the storm is, where your heart belongs is the compass. So the last thing is step 14 on Sunday, where your heart belongs is the compass. You will have to tell us you belong there before you see it. You will not see it until you tell us it belongs there. So, the hand thing, you won't see it because you're really controlling by the root level. You're not controlling by this. So you don't look around. Don't look at someone making more money than you. Don't look at all that stuff. Like that's all irrelevant. None of that data is going to do anything for you to be transplanted in the right place. The only way to be transplanted in the right place is there's no place like home. There's no place like home. Like Sir Dorothy does, like your heart knowing there's no place like, right? What is that at home, right? What is it? What does it feel like? What's it feel like from the root level? At the roots, what does it feel like? What's that dirt feel like? And so you want to really assess the dirt you want to be planted in, which is the energies and the feelings and the vibrations, where your heart feels at home. Where you belong is where your heart feels at home. Where does your heart feel at home? So a practical aspect of this is, okay, I want to be a TV reporter. I want to be this. I want to be that. Does your heart feel at home driving all the time to a next fire? Does your heart feel at home, sitting behind your desk and doing nothing? Does your heart feel at home, telling people what to do? Because your heart feeling at home is you being planted in a place that's like you. When you choose your right home, you're being planted in a place that's like you. And so for you to know home, you have to know both you and what you might feel like on the outside, which is phase one of God, right? You have to know those two things.
Godliness.
Yeah, godliness, which is the next layer for humans. Humans become gods next. If you don't know, ascended masters, they become gods. Yeah,
Wow.
there's a
If you guys come back and rewatch this last 15, 20 minutes, if
oh,
not the whole thing, but especially the last 5 minutes, it's so profound. I think I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna re-listen to
wow.
it.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. It's fun. It's fun. It's really fun. You know what's really fun is that human garage people are interested in getting the mechanics of their spiritual vehicle, and so far they've been focusing on the hardware, and now we're starting to focus on the software running the vehicle. So you could say that human garage is going through an evolution right now because it is now evolving down to the root level. It began at the garden level, and it is now going to the root level itself. You know, um, Ironically, it's opposite for serious joy. We've been at the roots, and we're going to finally come into the garden. So as friends and partners, we're like doing this. You know,
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna get on a repost immediately, guys. So it'll be here on IG and then also on YouTube as well. All right.
always fun, man.
Yeah. I feel like completely enlivened and enriched right now. Um,
Yay! Well,
so
good. That's the after. So you're showing us after the storm. I mean, that's for Sept 10 Libras. That's how you should feel. Like cloudy, then very clear.
yeah,
It's
amazing.
great.
Okay. I
Yay!
appreciate everything you do for all of us, Chris.
Thank you. I appreciate you, brother. And has Gary found out we took over his show yet? You should tell him.
I don't know what's going on. I keep on getting texts. Hey, do next Monday. Do next Monday. I say, okay, okay,
It's
okay.
working out. Gary's just sitting back with a guitar, like, look at the ratings.
All right.
What is
Take
that?
care. Bye
All
bye,
right,
everybody.
guys.